Strange Behaviour is a 1981 released slasher, mysterious slasher, directed by Michael Laughlin.
It's set in a small, sleepy Illinois town. Film opens with a murder. I think it's the mayor's son, isn't it?
Yes.
Unusually, we see straight away who the killer is.
We do.
So, and it's just another sort of kid of a similar age. We meet Pete, who's the son of the local police chief, and his friend Oliver, who obviously at high school, we're talking about going to college, things like that. Pete wants to earn some money. Oliver knows of sort of some medical experiments going on. It's a local university, isn't it? Yeah. So he takes him along and he gets involved in that. And there's some weird things going on, shall we say. It has a lot of the standard slasher things going on, but it's a bit different in the fact that you know who the killers are.
Yes.
And the cops later, because there's another murder soon after that, and the cops say, oh, he was killed in a different way by, and I think it's somebody else. And as the audience, we know who it is. Yeah, to go any further would kind of spoil the reveal, shall we say, but there's strange things afoot in this sleepy town, shall we say.
There are.
A bit like Dead and Buried that we covered a few weeks ago.
I was going to say, it's a bit like Dead and Buried, isn't it? It's got a similar feeling to it. So I chose this one. Mm-hmm. I'd seen it now. I was trying to work out when it was I found it. So oddly, although it's set in America, set in Illinois, it's actually filmed in New Zealand. It's odd, because apparently they were searching around Illinois and they couldn't find anywhere. They wanted a kind of a backwater small town that felt a bit 50s. They couldn't find any.
Was it also for tax reasons as well, though? So it was cheaper to film.
Maybe, yeah. But anyway, so this was filmed in New Zealand, and it was also, because it was produced actually by, I can't remember his name, it was an Australian guy who actually produced much of the Ozploitation film.
Right.
So this one actually comes under the kind of Ozploitation terms, even though it's an American director. It's got an American cast and it's set in America. It was actually featured on Not Quite Hollywood documentary. But then I think I came to it differently. I go through these phases of finding actors and then watching their careers. And I came across it because I was watching Dan Shaw's career. He was in Bill and Ted. He was also in Tron. He played Ram in Tron. Mm-hmm. But I'd actually seen him in a film called Wise Blood, which is a John Huston film with Brad Dourif, like a late 70s film, where he's in that, and he's really good in that film. And so I was kind of looking at what else he's done, and I came across this Odyssey. It's a really strange film, hence the title. No pun. Well, maybe there is. I don't know.
It is a bit strange.
It's very quirky. I mean, it is a slasher film of sorts, Scream-like, and lots of the slasher films during the 80s. I never watched a huge amount of slasher films. Obviously, I've seen, Halloween and Friday the 13th and Black Christmas obviously is a really early one, and obviously Scream. No, I was never the biggest fan of. I always liked horror that was surreal. So Hellraiser, Nightmare on Elm Street, actual kind of fantasy horror.
Yeah.
This stuff I always found a little bit hard to watch. But it's supposed to be hard to watch, isn't it? And it's obviously real killing, although this has kind of odd things going on in there as well, which make it quite strange. But I like this film. I've seen it a few times now. I think what's really good about it is the acting. Personally.
Yeah. Sometimes in these sort of low-budget, early slasher films, they can be a bit, wooden.
Yeah,
a lot of the actors,
exactly.
Because they're young actors, they're not very experienced, and the directors aren't always the greatest. So
for me, this felt the other way round. Actually, I thought the acting's really good, but the film itself feels a bit wooden at times. And then I think it's quite slow. There's some odd editing choices. Music kind of comes and stops and then comes back in a few seconds later, which is a bit odd. And some of the cuts are a bit, it cuts while someone's talking. But the acting, I think, it's got like this really good American casting. Yeah. So you've got Dan Shaw and you've got Mark McClure. Obviously, Mark McClure we know from Back to the Future, Marty McFly's older brother. And Superman, he plays Jimmy in Superman. Dan Shaw was one of the historical figures in Bill and Ted that we've listing off now, aren't we? How many have we done now?
I think we've done Socrates.
Yeah, we've done Socrates. He was in the Rutger Hauer film, wasn't he?
Split Second. Yeah. And Napoleon, he was in Incident at Ravensgate.
He was. That's right.
So now we've done Billy the Kid. So we've got Joan of Arc. Oh, we've done Genghis Khan.
He was in Die Hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got Joan of Arc and Sigmund Freud. Although I don't think Sigmund Freud was actually in anything else. So we might struggle with that one.
Okay. Well, we should do Joan of Arc.
Have to do a Joan of Arc film.
And Abraham Lincoln?
Oh, yeah, Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, no, we haven't done him yet either.
Yeah. So we're getting there.
We're getting there.
And we'll put them in put their own section.
A special playlist.
Yeah, a special playlist of Bill and Ted historical figures. Crazy. Louise Fletcher from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. She's in there. And Michael Murphy from I don't know. I recognise him.
Batman Returns and Magnolia and Shocker. Again, he's one of those recognisable faces that you might not know his name when you see him, but you think, I've definitely seen him in something before.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so it's got there are other people in there as well. I think some of it's been dubbed, because I think occasionally there's obviously actors from New Zealand over in it. Terence Donovan, Jason Donovan's dad, is in it.
Is he?
Just blink and you miss him.
Oh, right.
He was in Neighbours as well.
Was he?
Yeah, with his son. I don't know, were they father and son in Neighbours? Can't remember. There's a shot just before they go to this party. You see this girl getting ready for the party and then getting out. She's clearly, not allowed to go to this party, and
Climbs out the window.
Climbs out the window, but before it goes up to her room, you see her parents in the living room, and the father is Terence Donovan, Jason Donovan's dad.
There you go.
Tidbit for you.
Struth
Indeed. They're all very experienced actors. So Dan Shaw, he's one of those actors that if you watch while he's acting, he's clearly really acting. And he really loves his craft, and he's like playing off people and making strange facial expressions. I don't know. I like it when actors really kind of get into their parts, and really they seem to be having a buzz and enjoying it, which this film has lots of. It's quirky, and it's also very quirky for one reason. There's one thing in this film that's just it's kind of the most memorable thing from this film, and that's the party in the middle of this film. The kids go to this party, and there's like a dance scene in the party, which is just so bizarre and so memorable. And all the kids, they're dressed up in they're playing 60s TV characters, and they're playing the song "Lightning Strikes" by Lou Christie, and that's playing in the background, and they just all start dancing to it, and it's just odd because it's kind of, the film itself is quite slow, I find at times, but this sequence is quite energetic. And it's very colourful as well, because the film is quite dull colours and not a lot going. It's kind of backwater American town, and in this weird sequence, and I don't know why it's really cool, and I find the film quite memorable for that scene. And what's also interesting is if you watch Dan Shaw in that scene, he bounces around, and he trained over in London. He trained at LAMDA, the drama school over here, and he got into a play. He was in a play, like a punk rock play at the end of the 70s with Nigel Planer. I think it was written by Nigel Planer. While doing research for that part, he went to see a lot of punk gigs. He watched how they did kind of the pogoing that they used to do at punk gigs. And so he'd take that and he put it into the scene, and that's why he's pogoing around the scene like that. I don't know, there's something about it. To me, this film feels like, it's like there's a really good film in there. There's like a good cult film in there, but it's not. It's just missing something. And I think it's just quite slow at times. But so you hadn't seen it?
I hadn't seen it, no. I mean, it was better than I was expecting it to be. You lent me the DVD, and the cover art it's a shot of one of the killings where the guy is wearing a Tor Johnson mask, which looks really weird and creepy, but that only features in that one scene. That makes it look really weird. It wasn't quite as, like you say, it's a strange film, but it's not as weird as I was expecting it to be. And like I say, the acting was better than I was expecting it to be, and it was quite, it was a fun little slasher. But it did make me think of other films like Dead and Buried. It stands apart from all the. There's a lot of slasher films that are all roughly the same thing, basically, just some masked nutter going around killing teenagers. And while this is similar to that, it does have a different side to it, and it's sort of the whys and wherefores of what's happening is completely different. So I thought it was good.
It reminds me of the bit of Scream, although obviously Scream was later. It's bits of Scream. I mean, even the scene that character mask is in is quite.
That is quite Scream, because he's got like a black
cloak, and then he chases this girl across the grass, and then attacks her.
I mean, that's a classic, slasher scene. But the rest of it isn't really.
And I think it's quite atmospheric, this film as well. There's some quite strange scenes of. So Tangerine Dream did the score. There's lots of songs in there as well, like Lightning Strikes and some other stuff. But Tangerine did the score, but it's not their kind of normal 80s, quite, synthy score. It's quite atmospheric and almost ambient-like, and just kind of sits there in the background, which makes the film feel quite atmospheric. And there's some there's odd scenes of Dan Shaw driving his car through the streets of this small town he lives in. And it's slow, but it's quite, I don't know, it's atmospheric. I like it. It's an odd feeling. It gives the film a different feel to a lot of those other slasher films, like ones that I've mentioned before. It was supposed to be part of a trilogy, this. Of films that have the word strange in the title.
So Strange Invaders.
Strange Invaders came next. It's got Nancy Allen in, which I have not seen, actually. That's one I'd quite like to see. But he never got around to directing the third one. So I guess maybe they weren't, as
Successful as he wanted them to be.
Exactly. I have it on DVD. You mentioned it was called Dead Kids.
We haven't mentioned that. Yeah, in America, well, it seems to be called Dead Kids, and I think in other countries as well. So yeah, it's Dead Kids, aka Strange Behaviour.
Which is not a pleasant title, is it? Dead Kids?
I mean it's quite sort of accurate, I guess, but I think Strange Behaviour is probably the better title.
I suppose you could call any slasher film Dead Kids, couldn't
yeah,
you?
pretty much, yeah.
Kind of.
So
I think Strange Behaviour...
It kind of fits with the plot, I would say.
With the plot more, yeah, definitely. And obviously that's its actual title. If the director was making films with strange in the title, then it should be called Strange Behaviour. Because it doesn't make sense when you've got strange invaders as well.
No.
I mean, I don't know how alike those films are. Different cast. I think that was also filmed in New Zealand, and I know that Dan Shaw has a cameo in it.
Isn't that an alien invasion film?
It's an alien invasion film. Yeah, exactly. It's quite a cool cover, I think. But you can get it on Blu-ray, can't you?
In the States, I think, and Canada and Australia.
Severin Films have released it.
In America, I think it's region free, so you can import it if you're outside of the States.
Yeah, I've seen that because I've heard the commentary with Dan Shaw on there, because it's Dan Shaw and one of the actresses in the film as well. And they're on the commentary for that. And then there's also a commentary with this has an interview with Bill Condon, the producer, but that disc also has a commentary with the director, which that's kind of just standard, behind the scenes stuff. The one with Dan Shaw is actually really interesting because he really talks about it in detail.
That's just a text interview, which was clearly written quite some time ago, because I can't remember what film he was working on next, but it was it's one that was out years ago. The Australian Blu-ray has also got quite a long interview with Dan Shaw on it as well, which isn't on the American disc. But I think the sound isn't quite as good on the Australian disc, so there's a couple of options out there. There's investigate which one you would prefer and which is cheaper to get. It was a video nasty, I think, in the 80s.
Right. The murders they're quite vicious, actually. I mean, again, they're slow paced. There's quite a bit of blood here and there, but they feel like actual. There's a stab. There's a stabbing scene at the beginning, I think.
You don't really see it. It's just in shadow.
It's in shadow, but it's the second one with this.
Oh yeah.
There's a stabbing scene, and it feels like it's stabbing someone. You feel everything going in and coming out again, which makes it.
It's probably the sound. I think because you don't really see it. I think it's the sound.
No, it's the sound
that
effects.
Does it,
exactly. So, and that's obviously what's always great is things you don't actually see can often because you feel it and you hear it.
And to bring up Dead and Buried again, which had a needle in the eye scene.
Ah, yes,
this also has a needle in the eye scene. Yeah, so if you're squeamish about needles in the eyes, avoid it.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking that while watching it. It's pretty like. Oh God.
It's not quite as bad as
Dead and Buried. It's not quite as bad as that, and it's not quite what's the other one? Zombie Flesh Eaters. That has. That's a pretty horrendous. No, it's not quite like those two, but it gets close enough when you're like, oh God, Jesus. So that was Strange Behaviour, and as always, if you enjoyed the video, let us know in the comments below.
Hit the subscribe button up there, and don't forget to hit the bell for notifications. There's other videos to check out over there. Come and find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And come back next week for another video.